May God bless you. I hope you are all doing okay, at least a little bit better than me. I hope you are doing all well this morning. So, we started Job, I believe, chapter 1 last week, and I'm going to start there today just to summarize a little bit. Job is that type of character that seemed to live a perfect life. When you read the first few verses of chapter 1, you find that this man had a great spiritual life. He had a great life with God. And you can read that in verse 1. He had a perfect spiritual life. He also had a perfect life with his family. I mean, he had 10 children. What a life. That's when you know you've made it in life. You have children, they seem to be healthy, life is good. And not only that, he was rich. Look at how many animals he had, servants. So this man, in many ways, he was blessed, he made it in life, he had a perfect life, and there was no one like him. I love that about verse 8. There was no one like him. He was on top of the world. He was recognized probably by everyone. Now, he seemed to live a perfect life, which also sometimes may look to us like a controlled life. And that's something that I think most of us, if not everyone, will love to have. We will love to be in control of our lives. And I get paid to deliver good news, but right now I'm bringing you some bad news. If you haven't figured this out yet, and I haven't, I just turned 41, and I figured this out way before my age, is that you are not in total control of your life. You are not in total control of the things around you. One of the things that brought me to start therapy with a psychologist back in 2017 was this issue with that word. 7 letters, I think. Control. That was one of the issues. I had no idea. But I wanted to be in control of my ministry. I wanted to be in control of my life. I wanted to be in control of my marriage. Not controlling my wife, but being in control of everything that happened in our marriage. And you start learning in life that some things are not in control. And so Job presents some emotions that we may experience during our life. And the first one is suffering. If we could take that away from us, I think that would be one of the first things that we would take away. Hey, let's have a perfect life. Maybe not be as rich as Job, but let's take away the suffering. Pain and suffering. One of the main reasons why people stop believing in God. It's not one of the main reasons why people don't start believing in God. It's one of the main reasons why people stop believing in God. One of the reasons why people get away from God is the pain and suffering of this world. The idea that we cannot comprehend. There's a God that loves us and a God that allows us to suffer. And that happens to Job. He seemed to live a perfect life, but we all experience pain and suffering in this world. And so from verses 13 to 19, you may know this already, or maybe you don't, but there are messengers that come to Job, and each one tells him kind of like the same thing. We were there, and these people came over, killed all the servants, took the animals away, or killed the animals. I only escaped. And this is over and over. And they tell him that he lost all his animals and the servants. And the last one is the worst of all, in my opinion, is all 10 children die. Now, I have a lot of sympathy and empathy for people that have lost children or grandchildren, or people that you didn't think that you would outlive. But I cannot imagine losing all 10 children at once. And so he experiences this pain and suffering. Jesus said in John 17, you will have suffering in this world. See, Jesus is clear about the expectation that we should have. We shouldn't have an expectation that we're not going to suffer because Jesus said it. Now, the only thing that he said before that, which is really important for us to keep, is, I have told you these things so that in me you have peace. You may have peace. Now, you can have suffering, but one thing that we may be looking for is to have peace, to experience that. And not just about world peace, not just about peace on the news where we don't hear about any more killings. The Kirk family, I can only imagine what the wife and the children may be going through and the process that they have now for life. They're going to need professionals around them and a lot of company, professional company with them. So we cannot stop the suffering, but we can find peace. And there are professionals that can help us with that. There are self-help books, thousands of them nowadays. There are podcasts and all kinds of things. But the number one thing that we believe, the top of the class that we believe that will help us reach peace is Jesus. Nothing beats that. And so he experienced suffering. The other thing that we're going to talk about is support. We get to chapter 2, and Satan strikes again and gives him these terrible boils from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. And so the only one person that was left with him in his family was his wife. And as he's kind of like trying to heal himself from this, she tells him those words. Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die. So she wasn't very supportive, to say the least. Now, sometimes we just forget that she also lost her 10 children. I'm not saying that her words are okay, but I'm saying that we're not in her shoes. So it works both ways. Sometimes we need support. Catherine and I, we really feel it when one of us is sick and the other one is anxious. And we got children to take care of, and I got a job to keep. And we don't have our mothers around. And it's hard to say, hey, some of you may have family members or used to have when you had kids that could just come around and take care of your kids. And for some of us foreigners or people that are not from this area, I can only imagine. Even people who are from the United States but come from other parts of the U.S., it's hard not having family members around here. I remember that's one of the things that Tricia and Derek talked about. They just didn't have family members around. And it's hard when you don't have support. And the number one support that you have is probably, for those of us who are married, is your spouse. And when your spouse is not that supportive, it's hard on you. But then you gotta understand that you also have to be supportive to her or him. And sometimes you're not. Sometimes you are not in a place where you can be as supportive as you should. And so our prayer is not just that we can find support in others, it's also that we can be supportive of others because it works both ways. And so next thing, after he replied to his wife, he says those things which are very important. Are we going to accept the good from God but not the adversity? That's a great question. And sometimes I have to remind myself of that. And so Job did not sin. And then in verse 11, we have 3 of his friends. Now the following chapters in Job are going to be focusing on the three friends coming to Job, Eliphaz, Bildad, Zophar. They came to him, and they came to sympathize with him and comfort him. That's what they came for. That was their purpose. They had great intention. And when they saw him, they couldn't even recognize him. You can only imagine how Job looked. And then they wept aloud. They're good friends. I've been with people in their most difficult times, and sometimes I have not wept. And sometimes I can't help it, and I'm emotional, and I come from a culture of lots of emotions. And so crying is sometimes is part of life, and being with somebody. And sometimes I just want to cry, and it's fine. I know I grew up in an age where probably lots of us men were told not to cry, but it's fine. You want to cry sometimes, it's okay. And then they wept to see his friend. And I've been with people that are suffering, and I don't shed a tear. And that happens. But the three friends here, they wept aloud. And they did the usual thing of their culture at that time of age. They tore their robes and sprinkled dust over their heads. That Job did too in chapter 1 when he found out about his children and all of that. And then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. That I have never done. Yes, I get paid to go and visit people at their worst times. We spend maybe a few hours with them, maybe text here and there for a few days. I've never sat with anybody as they mourn for 7 days and 7 nights. Now, you call that support. I wish if I was ever at Job's place, I wish I had 3 friends that would just come and be there 7 days, 7 nights. And they didn't say anything. They just sat there. This is great, great support. No one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. Jesus does that for us. Jesus said, "Come to me." This is his great invitation, my favorite passage right now. "Come to me, and I will give you rest." Come to me, and you will find rest. Jesus is the number one support for us. Now, if we are people of Jesus, we're going to be that for others. And if we're not being that for others, then who are we following? Because if we're following Jesus, we provide that for others. Galatians 6, Paul says, carry each other's burdens, and that way you will be like Jesus. If you carry each other's burdens. And sometimes it's hard. It's difficult. I work for the church, which means I have a requirement to also provide support. And I am aware that sometimes I am not maybe as supportive as I want to be. And life is hard. But we all need support. And so my hope and my prayer is that we voice it out, is that we can tell others. There are great people here. One of the most wonderful couples that we have in this church are Jack and Ann. They're always showing their care and love for others. They share with us what some of the struggles of others are. We have no idea. I wouldn't know about some of the things that I get on the text if it wasn't for Jack and Ann sharing those things with us. And people, I mean, you recognize this. People find them supportive. That's why they talk to them. That's why they come to them. And they're fulfilling the law of Jesus because they're being supportive. And they also have their struggles. There are times when they're gonna need us to ask, "Hey, how are y'all doing? How are you doing? What do you need prayers for?" See, we're not alone, and it's not a one-way thing. And if you work ever for a church, if you're a minister, you're going to find that out. You have this thing about being supportive, and who supports you. And so if we find people of Jesus around us that can fulfill the law of Jesus, that is great. Number 3, surrender. Now, this one is great in the sense of you surrendering to Jesus. However, it happens to many of us that sometimes we just want to surrender completely, which means we want to give up. Now, if you recognize that, I have the word there because it starts with S, SU. All 3 of them start with SU. So I wanted to do that like a play on words. You're like, oh yeah, all the points have SU to begin with. But sometimes we just want to give up. I hope it's not just me. I'm 41, and sometimes I've been at a place in my life where I just want to give up. I know those are hard words that maybe is not what you want to hear from a minister, but I've been there. And I mean, then I remember how blessed I am, and all the things that I have, and all the things that I am able to do, and how blessed I am, and then it makes me feel guilty because I feel bad that I want to give up. And look at these people, like they just lost their husband and father, like the Kirk family. I mean, what? I feel for her, and then I feel guilty. Oh, here I am complaining. But here's what happens with Job in chapter 3, and we're going to cover chapter 3 really quick, and we're going to finish with that today. I want to give you a warning because there are children here. There's some strong language. So we're just going to be careful with that. But the first thing that tells us is that after this, Job began to speak and curse the day he was born. See, we get this image in chapter 1, and that's why I wanted to start in chapter 1. A perfect man with a perfect relationship with God. But all you see is a life under control. But when life starts getting out of control, things get out of hand, sometimes people surrender and they give up. And Job is not the exception. And so, usually asking why does not help at all. And I have a tendency to do that. Catherine has been sick in bed. This is the 3rd day. I took her to the urgent care. Let me see. The 2 days before that, she's doing her professional internship for her master's at the university. She's doing it at this organization. It was her first 2 days. So the 2 days, like Tuesday, Wednesday, let me see. Yeah, no, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm sorry. Wednesday, Thursday, I was trying to work while I took care of the 2 kids. And then Thursday night, I took Catherine to the urgent care. And so Friday, which I was going to work completely like 10 hours, while Catherine had the kids, that was our deal, I had the kids again while I was trying to work and juggle, while Catherine was on bed, while we were trying to figure out some of the costs of her hospital visit. And, things just start getting out of hand. Things get out of control. And yesterday she was in bed all day again. And so sometimes my tendency is, why God? Why me? Have you ever been there? You can laugh, it's okay. But it's like a little comic, like, oh, why me? And I'm on my knees, why me, God? Why is this happening to me? And some of you are like, Diego, that's nothing. Come on, like some of you may have real issues as well, and sometimes you may be on your knees asking why. Well, let's just look at some of the whys that Job is going to ask. Again, some strong language here. Why did I not perish at birth? Why didn't I die as I came from the womb? Or why was I not hidden like a miscarried child? like an infant who never saw the day of light or the light of day. Why is light given to those in misery? Why is life given to a man whose path is hidden, whom God has hedged in? And some of us could feel that way. Some of us could want to surrender to our biggest fears, and that's how chapter 3 ends. He says, what I feared has come upon me. What I feared the most has arrived, and what I dreaded has happened to me. Here, Job confesses he had that fear. Living a perfect life, living a controlled life, he had those fears. And those fears came to him. I have no peace, no quietness. I have no rest, but only turmoil. How many of us have been at that place? And Job has the support of his friends there, sitting 7 days and 7 nights with him, not saying a word. Job still has a wife, as far as we know. And Job has had a great relationship with God. Job has been the best person in the world, as far as we can see in chapter 1. There was no one like him. And yet he had those fears, and those fears have arrived. And sometimes we want to surrender. We say, it's too much. I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand the news. What's going on? Why is the world like this today? And so we need a solution. In Job's case, his solution comes later. I'm going to skip to chapter 19. I know we're not covering chapter 19 today. I think Tim is later on, another Sunday. But Job says, I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end, he will stand on the earth. It took him some time, so I'm skipping forward. I don't know how long it will take you, and I don't know how long it will take me. It's been a hard summer for me because I am so blessed, and yet sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with panic attacks. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but that's something I do. And if you do, you're not alone. When I started experiencing those, it was many years ago. I was in college. The first time I remember, I was in college. I was going to a soccer practice, and I experienced that. But the first time I actually sought help was in 2017. I was a minister already, and I had to seek help and find out what this was. And I realized I have those things, which are panic attacks. They come and go. Sometimes I've gone years without panic attacks. I actually don't remember having them while we were in Tennessee before coming here. I don't remember having those, but they just come and go. I was in Costa Rica on vacation with my parents, doing the duty of the child that brings the grandkids to the grandparents, and I still have panic attacks and anxiety, and sometimes the anxiety stays for days. Right now, my body is a little numb. My hands, my feet are a little numb. So right now, you're looking at me, and I have anxiety. I wish I was making this up. No, it's just something that comes and goes. And it makes life more difficult. Because here I am trying to tell the world, hey, we believe in Jesus. My Redeemer lives. Job had to believe it before it happened. Job is prophesying here about the Redeemer coming to earth. And that's whom I preach, and that's who I believe is my Redeemer as well, is Jesus. And gives me so much hope. It's my solution because in Him I find rest. Because when I come to Him, He gives me rest and peace of mind, which I really need. So in John 16, Jesus said this to His disciples: "Now is your time of grief, but I will see you again, and you will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy." That is powerful. And I love that. One day, I hope to see Jesus because I know my joy will not be taken away. It will be joyful forever again. But as we try to get that solution of going to Jesus, we can also bring a little bit of Jesus down here to us. And my question is, why not make this life as joyful as possible to us and to others, where they can experience Jesus and they can say, I know that my Redeemer lives. I love this song. It says, no more fear in life or death. I know how the story ends. I'm fighting a battle that you've already won. No matter what comes my way, I will overcome because you, Jesus, have already overcome. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for being supportive. I want to thank you for being like Jesus. You may experience suffering, you may need support, or you may need to be supportive. Sometimes you may feel like surrendering. I hope that instead of surrendering your life completely, you surrender spiritually to Jesus and that you find that solution. Jesus is the solution. Thank you for your time. I hope this lesson is applicable to you as it is to me. May God bless you.